brought this stuff up, right? Captain Positive, you don't want to talk about this. This doesn't make us feel good, right? This doesn't bring in the numbers. This isn't the kind of stuff where like, you want to feel good about your life? You're a mist and you vanish. Who are you? Okay, I guess I'm nothing. What he's saying, though, is, and what he's trying to get to here is, so let's go to verse 15. So we got to read 14 and 15 together. Why? You don't even know what will happen tomorrow. In other words, you are short-sighted. You don't get the big picture. Again, it takes some humility to recognize that. To recognize I don't have it all figured out. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But what is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Verse 15. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. So is he saying don't plan? He's not saying don't plan. He's saying put God's will first. God's will should dictate our lives. If it's his will, I'll go do this. But if he wants something else, I'll change. Again, we're looking at James's life here. James probably had this plan to be a carpenter, to make this money, to travel, to do these things. And then all of a sudden, Jesus comes around. You look at most of the disciples. They all had lives. You know, some weren't big, fancy lawyers or things like that. They were just lowly, blue-collar fishermen. But they had a plan. They had to take care of their families. What happens? Jesus comes along. And they were willing to follow God's will. Not go fishing the next day. Go with Jesus. In the same way, we can have some plans, and even those day-to-day plans. Do this, I'm going to work, I'm going to come home, I'm going to get this done. What if somebody calls you and needs some help? Are you willing to go? Are you willing to put your plans aside? And sometimes we have this misunderstanding of what God's will is all about. Right? Because we have this understanding of God's will that he's giving you a no now because he has a bigger yes down the road. So I'm willing to accept that God is saying no right now. I'm willing to accept that God is saying no to me because I know he's going to let me win the lottery. It's his will that I win the lottery when it's 200 million. That's not always his will. What if you don't win 110 million because somebody else needs more and needs something right now? What if his kingdom needs to be furthered? More people need to know the name of Jesus. So no personal blessing comes your way other than spiritual blessing, which is what we should be after anyway. You don't get those materialistic blessings that you think God is the most important blessing in his will is just to give you more. What if his will is for somebody else to get the blessing? Kingdom to be furthered. For more people to know the name of Jesus. So we sacrifice our plans for his will. Not a bigger blessing down the road. See, sometimes we think, well, you know what, I'll be willing, I'll hold off some of my blessing. What if the more for you later on is a spiritual blessing? Are you willing to accept that will? Are you willing to accept that blessing in your life? A spiritual blessing in your life. Rather than a worldly, materialistic blessing in your life. See, sometimes we have a bad understanding of what God's will is. And so James is saying, you know what? It might not be your plan. It might not be what you want. It might not be what you need.